We'll now begin with the second working session for today. Our speakers for this half will enlighten us on the regional conflicts and the security dilemma in the South Asian region, the traditional and non-traditional security policies of South Asian states and their impacts on the long-lasting disputes. The session will be chaired by Professor Dr. Munis Ahmed, Emeritorious Professor, former Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, the University of Karachi, former Chairperson of the International Relations Department, University of Karachi. Sir, I would request you to please join us on the stage. Our speakers for this session include Dr. Rizwan Zeib, Professor, International Relations and Strategic Studies. He is Director Staff Research at the Air War College Institute, Karachi. We'll be joined by Dr. Nausheen Wasi, Associate Professor, Department of International Relations, the University of Karachi. We will be connected with Dr. Long Shin Chan through a virtual call. Mr. Shin Chan is Senior Fellow at Charhar Institute in Beijing. I would now like to yield the floor to Professor Dr. Munis Ahmed to begin with the session. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. It's incredible because of two things. The first is that it's a post-lunch session. And post-lunch session means that we have only serious people, those who are really interested. The second thing is that we are starting ahead of our schedule, which is not the practice here. It's not even 2:30, but it's good that the speakers will have a lot of time to examine, discuss, contemplate things. Let me first introduce this session. The theme of this session is regional conflicts and security dilemma, of course in South Asia. We have three speakers. Our first speaker, Dr. Rizwan Zeib, who is Professor, International Relations and Strategic Studies and Director Staff Research, Air War College Institute, Karachi. And I know him since last almost 20 years when he was working on ripe moment theory. And he was associated at that time with the Institute of Regional Studies, Islamabad. So it's, I'm very happy to see you here. Our second speaker is Dr. Nausheen Wasi, who is Associate Professor. Oh, it's written Associate on the program, but I think it's due now. Who is Associate Professor, Department of International Relations, University of Karachi. Rizwan's topic is Pakistan-India relations and the complex web of security dilemma. My God. Let's see how this web of complex security dilemma is. Nausheen's topic of presentation is Politics of Connectivity, South Asia Dilemma. So it's a dilemma, and we have to find out that how true the dilemma is. I am not introducing them properly because it is mentioned as far as the booklet is concerned. The third speaker who will be online is Dr. Long how do you pronounce it? Zingchung. Zingchung, something like that. Long. Long is okay. Long. Zingchung. Senior fellow at Charhar Institute in Beijing, and he shall be speaking on rising China and its strategic and economic implications for South Asia. How the rise of China will basically shape things as far as South Asia is concerned. But I think China is already, it has already risen, you know. It's not rising, it's there. So we have 3 speakers, and each speaker will have 20 minutes. But there may be an element of flexibility, not at my expense in the end, or the question answer session. So I would request, and let me, just 2 minutes about the regional conflicts and security dilemma, the theme of this session, which is paramount, which is, I think, is very significant, because regional conflicts, which the speakers will talk about, is something which is an impediment as far as cooperation is concerned, as far as connectivity is concerned, and along with that there is a security dilemma. Keep us guessing about the next move of India, next move of Pakistan, next move of China. The second thing is that, which I will also, spell out when I will have some time. हाँ बिल्कुल और कितने नज़दीक ले जाऊँ, that when I will have some time in the end, that one way to deal with the predicament of South Asia, because India is certainly a country which has around 75% of the area, population, resources of South Asia. And that thing is, you include China as a full-fledged member of SAARC. I have done some work on that earlier. The Indians may not be ready for that, but certainly China is a country which has its frontiers and its borders with the majority of the members of South Asia, except Sri Lanka. We cannot expect Sri Lanka to be a neighbor of China, or Maldives. Otherwise, the rest have borders with South Asia. So how can China, if China is admitted as a full-fledged member of South Asia, of SAARC, can create some sort of symmetry in this region? We can depend on that. So I don't want to take your time, not at your expense. Would request Dr. Rizwan Zeib to enlighten us about Pakistan-India relations and the complex web of security dilemma. So over to you.
Okay, as the customary beginning in such an activities is, I must thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak with all of you and share my thoughts. However, I want to start with on a slightly lighter note, but it is directly linked to what I'm going to talk about in next 20 odd minutes. People, those of you who are of my generation, they are aware of a sitcom, Mind Your Language. So in Mind Your Language, a character known as Ranjit Singh once asked Mr. Brown, who is the instructor of English language, what is this animal dilemma? Mr. Brown asked him, where you got this idea from? And Ranjit Singh responded that, I read in the newspaper that the Prime Minister is on the horn of a dilemma. So now while I was walking from there to here, I just realized that I am actually facing 3 dilemmas here, especially because this is a post-lunch session. First is to make sure that all of you are awake. Second, keep myself awake. And third, in between, make sense of the topic, which is very huge. So having said that, there are two disclaimers that are in order. One, whatever you are about to hear from me, this is in my personal capacity and should not be attributed to the organization that I represent. And second, I'm a structural realist. So whatever I'm going to say, you must keep that perspective in mind, because that is the lens from which I'm looking at this whole debate. So in keeping the paucity of time, what I will do is that I'll flag a few points and then hopefully we can have a discussion regarding India-Pakistan and the centrality of this issue with South Asia and why this rivalry is pushing back or dragging South Asia way behind than the rest of the regions. So if you look at the map, South Asia is 7+1 countries now. It has 25% world population, but only 4% contribution to the global economy. And one thing which is unique is the centrality of India in the geographical landmass that we know as South Asia. So if you take India out of the equation, there is no South Asia. So whichever direction India would go, South Asia would go. Another point is that perhaps because of this very reason, South Asia is least connected and integrated region, because India is mostly absent in South Asia in the sense that there is hardly any South Asian country with which India has consistently maintained good relations, including Bangladesh. However, if you look at what are the reasons or what are the factors that are keeping South Asia behind the rest of the regions, India-Pakistan rivalry is one of the major reasons, if not the primary reason for this. This is a rivalry that is based on open hostility, deep mistrust, and active rivalry, something which my mentor and a very good friend of the chair, Steve Cohen, used to call a paired minority conflict. Pakistan being a weaker side militarily, with the historical experience as well as the memory that it holds and the ever increasing Hindu nationalism in India, makes quite sense that Pakistan faces or continues to face a security dilemma, and there is hardly anyone who would say that Pakistan is not facing this dilemma. The literature on on security dilemma tells us that one state takes an action, it could be just purely for its own security reasons, but then it starts a chain reaction, and that another state which has a certain threat perception of it then has to take its own measures, and thus a vicious cycle of action reaction in which you cannot identify what is the action and what is reaction starts. However, I will not divulge too much on the theoretical side of it, because I think there are more knowledgeable people here to talk about that, especially in the presence of Dr. Munisema. I won't even try to lecture anyone on security dilemma. So I'll straightforward move to the India-Pakistan thing. Now, if you look at the general narrative of India-Pakistan conflict historically, and how it has been shaping up in recently, you'll see that the literature that is coming out from the West, particularly United States of America, Pakistan is the problem. Starting from 1948 up till 2019, and even today, most of the literature will tell you that it was always Pakistan which rejected India's peace overtones or gestures. However, what is missing from all this is, and this is a big puzzle, is what is the Indian policy or lack of it towards Pakistan? Being an emerging power and being projected as a counterweight to China, India is the next powerhouse. But when you look at how it is dealing with its neighbors, particularly Pakistan, you will see that there are two things that emerge. Number one, New Delhi always responds to developments related to Pakistan, and that India has no coherent policy to deal with within its complicated relations with Pakistan. So historically, since 1947, India has been adopting different policy responses related to Pakistan, such as No War Pact, which Nehru offered Ayub Khan, to actively participating in the disintegration of Pakistan, to engage Pakistan in a peace process, dialogue, going a step further, which is the Gujarat Doctrine that India should act as a big brother, campaigning for Pakistan to be declared a rogue state, and of late ignoring Pakistan. A third point, which emerged post-nuclearization in this regard, is that in its dealing with Islamabad, India, whatever it does, intends to be a signaling to Washington to put pressure on Islamabad, otherwise New Delhi will have to take action. Since Narendra Modi took over, the current strategic thinking, as I read it, is that Pakistan is irrelevant and that India now belongs to the big league. However, when you look at the developments on ground, when you look at their war planning, when you look at the deployment patterns, their war games, and the fact that they are continuously struggling with the idea or the notion of two front wars or 2.5 frontal wars, a very different picture emerges. So it is, if you couple this with the idea that blood and water can't flow together, this shows that you might claim that so-and-so state is irrelevant, but you're still very much fixated with that state. This lack of confidence about its own ability is a dilemma that India is facing. So, what this means for the future trajectory of India-Pakistan relations and the prospect of peace, if at all, between India and Pakistan. We know that India always has certain conditions which it wants to be fulfilled before an active and productive engagement start with Islamabad. However, a survey of peace deals through modern history tells us that it is always the greater power that has to take the first step or accommodate the other side, and not the other way around. You cannot put conditions if you want to initiate a dialogue. Don't take my word for it. It's a very good book known as How Enemies Become Friends, The Sources of Stable Peace, by Charles Kupchan of Georgetown University, who has written this book. So is India willing to heed to this lesson of history? Is everybody's guess. However, what New Delhi needs to consider or ask itself whether it would be possible for it to be accepted as a global player and power without having a peaceful South Asia and without having good relations with its neighbors, or in Pakistan's case at least having working relations. So again, to quote Steve Cohen, if India thinks it can advance as a major power without solving the Kashmir issue, it is merely fooling itself. Quite a strong words, but it is coming from the dawn of South Asian studies. So what is my main point of all this? Or what is the biggest point that I want to flag? In my understanding, the biggest impediment in India-Pakistan relations is not the so-called security dilemma. I'm not denying its existence. but it is not the biggest impediment. But the fact that India and its policymakers lack imagination. Policy making is not just simple mathematics. You have to have certain vision, you have to have certain imagination to venture into the realm of impossible and then try to achieve it. When it comes to Pakistan, New Delhi lacks that imagination. And because of that, the only vision New Delhi has of Pakistan is Pakistan as an enemy. Under no circumstances it has ever looked at Pakistan historically as anything other than enemy. And even today, when it is looking at Pakistan, studying Pakistan, evaluating Pakistan, the only determinant that it is using is that Pakistan is an enemy. So this lack of imagination or vision of viewing Pakistan as an opportunity or viewing Pakistan as someone that could be a partner or as someone with it can work in Afghanistan, in Central Asia, in the larger South Asian integration is the biggest impediment for peace between India and Pakistan. Until that impediment exists, no offense to anyone, all these notions of South Asian connectivity and South Asia emerging as a regional bloc or South Asia joining the global economy as a region would remain a mirage. I'll stop here, and I hope that these few points that I flagged would generate enough discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rizwan Zeeb, for your precise, thoughtful presentation, and certainly you have ended on a note which basically deals with the vision and the contradiction in the vision of India certainly, which I'll talk later on. The next speaker is Dr. Nausheen Wasi, who shall be speaking on politics of connectivity, South Asia's dilemma. Over to you.
Thank you very much. A very good afternoon to all of you. Before I share my thoughts with you on the given topic to me, I was facing another dilemma while I was coming to this podium. It is customary, for all these scholars to thank the organizers. And being part of the organizing committee, I was facing this dilemma: whom should I thank for inviting me here? Of course, Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung, and it is Naeem's generosity to give me this opportunity to talk to you people and share my thoughts on the topic. I would deal with this topic with different perspective other than that with which we understand connectivity in the region. And in order to give you the context, I'm beginning with the content analysis on the connectivity discourses that we largely read. And this we as a scholar calls the literature review. There are 3 points, my observation. While we go through the literature on connectivity, a large chunk of existing literature on connectivities consists of a kind of cliched analysis. Please pardon if that hurts anybody. And I would explain what do I say to the cliched analysis. It deals with the prospects that connectivity brings to the regions and the challenges that we face in enforcing the connectivity in the right way. So mostly people talk about the potential of the regional cooperation. Initially we used to talk about regional cooperation, now we call connectivity. So people talked about the potential, and for years and years we have been talking about the potential of cooperation for which connectivity is a must. And then we talk about the challenges and we conclude that because of these and these factors, connectivity cannot take place. And since the morning we have been hearing, our focus is on that factor. Secondly, those scholars who try to evaluate critically what this connectivity offers in the region, they view the connectivity initiative as a defensive strategy of states. Either it's a mean to control supply lines or establish an alternate if the existing supply lines are blocked, thus making connectivity a war of nerves, that I say, and which is against the very spirit of connectivity. Thus, the problem in this approach is that it works against the very logic of connectivity, which focuses on generating interdependence that subsequently substitute competition with cooperation. Then if we see it from the national strategy perspective of all countries in the region, countries in South Asia are pursuing connectivity with narrow nationalist politics prism. Therefore, despite robust infrastructure development, connectivity remain elusive. I tried to search the national security documents of each and every state in South Asia, and in every country's security policy document there is focus on connectivity. But how the different states are pursuing connectivity, that is another problem. And there is where I see the dilemma in the South Asia connectivity process. My central argument is over this question that what is South Asia's dilemma? South Asia is paradoxically pursuing connectivity through mechanisms that hinder rather than facilitate genuine regional integration. It faces a multifaceted dilemma in its pursuit of connectivity, primarily manifested through an exclusive emphasis on physical connectivity, while neglecting the essential components of interdependence and strategic complementarity, which is either here naturally or is generated. Then moving forward, the absence of a deliberate effort to cultivate strategic complementarity is a significant shortcoming in the current approach. And this is present in all countries' national strategy. Rizwan Saab just talked about India, but it's not just India. If we look at how Nepal is operating in the region, what Bangladesh ambitions are, how Afghanistan is taking this process, and Pakistan is also no exception. So it is in every country's politics. Economic and strategic complementarity entail leveraging each state's strength to enhance the overall resilience and competitiveness of the region. What we are doing instead, we are trying to follow the solo path. By systematically excluding these elements, South Asian nations risk missing out on the transformative potential of connectivity to address common challenges, promote economic growth, and ensure collective security. And thus we see frustration, the one that was expressed by our VC early in the morning. Then while physical and digital connectivity are crucial components, South Asia's pursuit of connectivity should transcend these aspects, embracing a more inclusive and comprehensive approach that I call one that values interdependence and strategic complementarity, that will not only unlock the true potential of regional cooperation, but also contribute to enduring peace and prosperity in the region. Before having this complementarity and interdependence efforts, we cannot have that. The shift towards a more nuanced understanding of connectivity is essential for addressing the complex challenges that South Asia faces in its quest for sustainable development and regional integration. So for that matter, it is very much imperative to understand connectivity, and that is mostly for the students' take. There are very learned scholars who understand what connectivity is. Our focus is mainly on infrastructure development, but connectivity refers to degree and quality of interconnectedness among different entities, typically in the context of communication, transportation, infrastructure, and economic interaction. It involves the establishment and enhancement of linkages, networks, and relationships to facilitate seamless interaction and exchanges. But the concept extends beyond physical connectivity to include the flow of information, ideas, goods, services, and people across various geographical, political, and cultural boundaries. It has 5 components. It has 5 components: physical connectivity, digital connectivity. These 2 are focused more. Economic connectivity, cultural connectivity, and political connectivity. Lately, I concluded a paper on regional cooperation in which I have categorized 3 sets of conditions that are important for cooperation in any region to take place. And I categorize them as necessary conditions, supporting conditions, and sufficient conditions. Necessary conditions are the ones which are important for cooperation to take place or to be thought out at the first place. Supporting conditions are the one that supports the process of cooperation, and sufficient conditions are the ones without which cooperation cannot take place, no matter how vigorously we talk about it, no matter what infrastructure we develop. Until and unless those sufficient conditions are there, cooperation cannot take place. That was observed in Europe, that was observed in Southeast Asia, and in South Asia as well. In Southeast Asia, we talked about ASEAN. Farhan also reflected on this in the morning session. In Southeast Asia, we see the presence of necessary conditions and the supporting conditions, but sufficient conditions have not been there. And that is why they have not moved towards the integration Europe has had. And perhaps that is the reason Europe is cited as the success story. They have regional integration in terms of what it means really. So 60% trade is intra-region. In ASEAN, there is only 38% trade. And we in South Asia have not moved from 5%. Largely it was 4% only. Physical connectivity and digital connectivity, viewing from that perspective, forms the necessary conditions. But then economic connectivity and cultural connectivity are the sufficient conditions, supporting conditions that would lead connectivity to function in the South Asia. That we need to understand, and that we need to focus on, that what our part be in raising this awareness among people and among policy makers, how connectivity can be yield fruits. Then benefits of connectivity, it is that connectivity that yields to benefits. They are defined in terms of economic growth, enhanced communication, cultural exchanges, regional stability, innovation and development. And this we talk about in terms of potential. Whenever we talked about the connectivity prospects in South Asia, basically we focus on these things. Our aspiration is that connectivity will give these kind of fruits. It's not working properly, I'm sorry for this. Benefits of connectivity and then implications of connectivity in South Asia. So our aspiration is to have those benefits of the connectivity that connectivity by design entails, but without having the supporting conditions and sufficient conditions for connectivity, and thus we fall short of expectations despite the vision. And I would share with you people very interesting observations about regional cooperation mechanisms in South Asia. Then historically, if we see, because I focus more on generating interdependence and complementarity, this is there in the region either naturally or created by design. Talking about South Asia, in the pre-independence era in South Asia, prior to the partition of British India in 1947, this region was marked by a rich tapestry of historical trade routes and cultural exchanges. The region was a hub of diverse civilization, and its geographical location made it crossroads for various trade routes. I have very impressive list, but due to the paucity of time, I will not go into the details. I just want you people to have a look at it and keep in mind that there were all sort of connectivity linkages, and this region was very prosperous. So you see, when one of our professors lately published a book on the politics of trade routes. It was mainly on BRI, and she presents a very good analysis that this politics of connectivity or establishing routes and establishing anti-routes is as old as the politics itself. So this is not something new that we have been talking about. That is, we are realizing it in a different perspective. So post-independence, what happened? The partition of British India in 1947 into two independent nations, India and Pakistan, had a profound impact on connectivity and regional ties in South Asia. The consequences of partition were complex and multifaceted, affecting economic, social and political aspects of the region. So what this did, this actually disrupted the traditional trade routes and led to a new sets of problems. Again, there are 6 or 7 problems that I highlight, but mostly we have been discussing it in different sessions. We talked about, the major conflict that we talked about is between India and Pakistan. But over the period of 7 decades, new sets of problems have emerged in South Asia that we equally need to understand in order to get the true picture what hinders cooperation in South Asia. So when I see the relationship between India and Pakistan, Pakistan and Afghanistan, Nepal and India, Bangladesh and Pakistan, actually the picture is not much different. We talk more about India because obviously India is a larger state. 72% of South Asia is India, and then India is leading all the development indicators as far as economic growth is concerned. But human development indicators continue to be low in South Asia that we need to understand. Another interesting fact that you people may call it dichotomy or the dilemma is that South Asia reflects vision for cooperation. It is not that we do not understand. While the region continues to grapple with historical legacies and unresolved issues, interestingly, there have been persistent efforts to improve cooperation, and connectivity aims at collective development of South Asian nation. And one interesting feature I would like to share with you people is that in the Thimphu Summit of South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation in 2010, the summit declared 2010 and 20 as the decade of intra-regional connectivity. It was even prior to BRI announcement, because BRI was announced in 2013 and then connectivity became the buzzword. But we in South Asia were talking about connectivity even earlier. And I am the student of regional cooperation. As far as policy documents are concerned, SARC is leading. We signed Convention on Terrorism in 1987. But terrorism is one of the pressing issues in South Asia. So that is very interesting feature. In 2010, we declared the decade of connectivity, but you can imagine the level of connectivity. My friend from Nepal was just telling me that we cannot fly directly from Nepal to Pakistan. India denies the space. And same is the case with Afghanistan as well. We cannot move beyond Afghanistan to Central Asia because there are security issues, etc. And now we are talking about bypassing Afghanistan. India is talking about bypassing Pakistan. So I don't know how could we have this cooperation process in that way. Again, I have an extensive list because this is something that I've been working on for long. As I said, that we reflect the vision to have cooperation and cooperative mechanisms in the region, but we lack vigor or perhaps the will, or I don't know what, that's the dilemma, what obstructs us to go in the direction that we desire. There are at least 19 regional connectivity initiatives that are at different stage of progress that are there in South Asia, and the list is in front of you. And apart from that, there are host of initiatives that are through countries' membership in different organizations. Like countries are member in ECO, in SAC, in SCO. Some are the observer partners in some other organizations in the world. So there are other schemes apart from that. but still there is nothing happening. So my central argument is that since we do not work for the essence of connectivity, or we are pursuing connectivity from the mean that actually denies connectivity, that is creating problem in South Asia, and that we need to address and think of. We need to think of what kind of regional connectivity South Asian countries aspire to, because the exclusive focus on physical connectivity, that too of defensive nature, may unintentionally lead to the creation of isolated silos. Like in Karachi, we see Karachi is expanding awkwardly. Same was being shared about Islamabad. I think regional connectivity in South Asia is expanding awkwardly. This all infrastructure is expanding awkwardly. So we will end up in the creation of isolated silos rather than a cohesive regional network. To rectify this, a more holistic and inclusive concept of connectivity is required, one that recognizes the importance of interdependence and strategic complementarity. For South Asian connectivity projects to be truly beneficial, relations between regional states must improve and intra-regional trade must increase. But how would it take place? It is something that is not in the cards anytime soon. For the moment, sub-regional connectivity may be the best possible outcome, making broader regional integration elusive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nausheen Wasi, for a detailed account of dynamics and dilemmas of connectivity, focusing on South Asia. Our third speaker is Dr. Long Ying Chun, who is Senior Fellow at the Charhar Institute in Beijing, and he shall be speaking on rising China and its strategic and economic implications for South Asia. So the IT people may connect. It's online. Okay, so may I have your attention, please? Since there is an issue of online connectivity with the third speaker, so the solution is that we can have question answer session. एक minute, please, patience. Question answer session, and if he is able to join, then certainly we can resume. So the question answer session has its own procedures. So please identify yourself, whom you want to ask, if not why you want to ask. So our first question is from Dr. Rabia. And let me mention here that I met Rabia for the first time. That was in November 2009, conflict resolution research. And last time, University of Lahore's this conference that University of Iran was also there in 2018. So over to you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure listening to both of you. So I have one question each from both of you. Dr. Rizwan, you mentioned that it is India who has been looking at Pakistan through the enemy lens and the enemy image. And it is India which needs to change that. But it takes two to tango, and we have seen that Pakistan also has this othering going on and the similar enemy image. And if both need to change this in order to find some space for conversation, then what is the way forward? Because it is not one-sided, and it should not be an expectation just from India to stop looking at Pakistan when Pakistan is not also changing its ways. So question from you. And from you, thank you so much. Great conversation. So my question is regarding digital connectivity. The digital Silk Route that China is propagating with 5G connectivity, bringing its digital infrastructure going around beyond South Asia even, and too much of reliance on one single partner for Pakistan, for example, and not diversifying partners in digital corridor sense, is going to put all its data and security issues all in like one basket. So how can Pakistan diversify its digital partners for digital connectivity when trust is an absolute issue? Like, when you go to India, your Jazz stops working, or whatever mobile connections, communications you have, they stop working beyond the border. शायद एक beep आती होगी, एक line आती होगी post, when you cross Wagah. So if we have barriers to physical connectivity or trade or commerce or whatever, e-commerce is one area where we can, the business lobbies on both sides can work. And it doesn't need too much of governmental patronage for that. So what are your solutions for that? Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Rizwan first, and then
Okay, I would have appreciated the ladies' first rule, but anyways, normally these things don't work when you are right in the thick of things. That's a very legitimate question, and I'm not shying away from it. The only problem is that, as I highlighted in the points that I flagged, I said there is already a lot there on what Pakistan needs to do, or what Pakistan should do, or what Pakistan should stop doing. What is missing in that sort of literature is what India needs to do, or what is the thing that is missing on the India's part. And I was just highlighting that. Had I been talking about the whole picture, I would have indeed talked about, and I have talked about, and you and few others know that I have published a lot on that. So definitely there are things that India needs to do, there are things that Pakistan needs to do, and then there are certain other extra regional states have to do. But here my mandate was just to highlight what is missing on India's side. But if you really want to get the whole picture, wait for my book that is coming out later in the year. Thank you very much.
Inshallah. So, Dr. Noshin.
Thank you, Rabia, for putting up this question. I see it from the capacity perspective, whether we have capacity for it or not. So yes, and then again, there is another dilemma as far as digitalization or digital connectivity is concerned that is confronted the global south, which is Farhan's favorite topic. But still, you see how many people understand that digital platform or digital connectivity mechanisms. That is problem in Pakistan and largely in global south as well. So digital connectivity is itself creating divide in the world. So no matter how we diversify, I don't think it is going to pay the desired results in South Asia, at least not for 2 to 3 decades. So we need to work first to generate capacity whereby these platforms can be made most use of. Thank you.
Any update about, or we should continue? Continue. Okay, so the lady over there. Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Of course, it is an honor for me to have two of my favorite teachers right in front of me and have been able to question after ages and ages and feel like that I'm still in the classroom and just attending one of the lectures. This is Zubaida Basi, Research Officer, Center for International Strategic Studies, Sindh, Karachi. Initially, I had two questions, one from Dr. Saab and then for my teacher. But then I would go for a connectivity one because I understand there is a short of time and everything. Madam, we see that physical connectivity has now, globalization has now transcended the borders, and globalization and connectivity has taken places. And we both know that policy making, academia plays a crucial role in policy making. You were talking about the digital connectivity under the banner of BRI, right? So there is this Space Silk Route which provides or aims for digital connectivity with Pakistan and then BRI countries. How much awareness in Pakistan in academic circles we have with respect to the space connectivity, that Space Silk Route, and how much we can achieve through that Space Silk Route, one. And then the purposes which align with the Space Vision 2047 of Pakistan. Do we have any awareness? Do we have any information? Are we working on this? If we are not doing that, what are the policy recommendations which would you suggest? Thank you again. It was overwhelming though.
Thank you.
Sir, for time shortages, I will continue after the session if you would allow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zubaida. I would be very brief in my answer because I keep on saying to my students that in this age of information, ignorance is by choice. So when you say that how much awareness is there, and please let me assure you, in policy making circles, awareness is more than we have. Actually the question is about the will. And that is the dilemma. It is not that our policy makers do not understand, but there are certain interests, certain limitations due to which they do not operate accordingly. And then the globalization has transcended borders, but borders are very much present here. You see, globalization debate is in a different perspective, but when it comes to policies and national policies of the state, globalization is something which is regulated. So information of flow is a different thing, flow of information is a different thing, but how do they make inroads in the policy making circle, that is a different story. And South Asia is far behind than the other regions of the world as far as these concepts are concerned. So I don't think that we will be soon racing the gap. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, the gentleman over there in the back.
It's me, Zabiullah, from the Department of International Relations. My question is about Afghanistan, regarding with the conference South Asia and regional connectivity. If you see the post-Afghanistan or the pre-Afghanistan.
Excuse me, whom you want to ask?
Sir, Farhan is sitting here. Fortunately, if he's going to answer, it will be good.
No, but he's done with his presentation. You want to ask her?
Sir
You want to
Rizwan
ask
can
him?
answer. Sir Rizwan can answer about then. Okay, sir. We see the pre-Afghanistan, the last 100 years, and then the now current Afghanistan. Then we see that current Afghanistan is more peaceful in the last 100 years. So I heard in the news that the shopkeeper, they said that we used to sell more than 100 in 2,000 coffins daily, but now we are just looking for even one customer to come and get one coffin. So if we talk about the connectivity, China is going to build a constructive relation with Afghanistan. We see that China is the first one who appoint the ambassador to Afghanistan. So why the other South Asian states are reluctant to make open negotiation with Afghanistan?
Okay, that's a tricky one, but you see, if China has appointed an ambassador for Afghanistan, it has done so because of its own national interest. And if the South Asian countries, particularly Pakistan, is not talking, if that is the implication that the South Asian countries are not talking to Afghanistan, that is happening because of their understanding or their notion of national interest. So it is not a question of what country A is doing and what we are not doing, or what country B is not doing. Every state actually behaves rationally, and it behaves according to whatever they perceive as their national interest. The problem of Afghanistan is that historically speaking, it was always a corridor, and that is still what its strategic significance is. So it's only a matter of question how you view Afghanistan and what kind of understanding and interest you have there. You want to make it a viable country, then there is a need to connect. And many countries' Central Asian ambitions actually are hindered because of Afghanistan. So I think it's a matter of perspective. At the moment, nothing else could be said. Afghanistan needs to do a lot of things, so does the regional countries, before Afghanistan can actually become part of the larger regional network. And that is the reason why when I talked about South Asia in my presentation, I said 7+1. So the +1 was Afghanistan. So that is why it was separate, because there lots needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, there was someone from, the lady over there, yes.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Urusa Mehboob from the Department of International Relations, University of Karachi. My question is for Dr. Nausheen. How do differing national priorities and policies among South Asian countries affect regional connectivity? What steps can be taken to align national interest and foster shared vision for the connectivity in the region? Thank you.
This is I reflected in my presentation as well, that we are pursuing, South Asian states are pursuing individual narrow nationalist interests, and that is the main hindrance towards connectivity. Connectivity inherently generates interdependence. It's by default, whether you like it or not. What is happening in South Asia, we are denying this fact. We are denying this interdependence, and we are actually explaining interdependence from the narrow defensive perspective. That is the problem. I think there is a need to shift mindset. So you see, at society level, this will is there, but it is on the government part to take the necessary steps. And actually for them, when I talk from the realist perspective, basically there needs to be a supporting factor. In case of Europe, it was outside power. In case of Southeast Asia, it was outside power. In case of South Asia, major powers' interests are not compelling connectivity. That is the problem. So perhaps necessary conditions are there. Sufficient conditions will take time, but we need to generate supporting conditions, and we need to think what otherwise they can be. Thank you.
Okay, there was someone in the back. Piche. No, you are in the front. Oh, okay. So you have a strategic move. Please.
If you allow me. This might seem a very similar question as what Dr. Rabia has asked, But when we talk about connectivity, as Dr. Nausheen mentioned, certain moves, certain points, and Sir Rizwan mentioned that India considers us to be their enemy, and Delhi has this notion that Pakistan is not a peace-maintaining state. Now the question arises that do you think there is a chance that the contemporary mindset changes and Islamabad is no more considered as an enemy for Delhi? Can soft power diplomacy work over here, or should we make peace with the notion that Pakistan may never rise as a peace-maintaining state and connectivity between these two states should rest in peace forever? And I would like both of my teachers to answer this question. Thank you.
I don't recall using the term peace-maintaining state, and pardon my ignorance, but I'm not even familiar with this term, peace-maintaining state. States behave rationally and they act on their national interests. If peace is in their national interest, that's what the states would pursue, and if war is what they have to do, that's what they will do. My argument was very simple. My argument was that as Rabia then alluded also, that although the literature talks a lot about what Pakistan should do or could do or needs to do, there are many things that India has to do as well, and the literature normally doesn't talk about it. And in that, I said that India needs to change how it approaches Pakistan, and that's what I said, that the approach is that viewing Pakistan as an enemy. Having said that, it's not a question of what Pakistan would do or what India would do unilaterally. Again, it is a question of national interest. And as I said, because I'm a structural realist, that is the prism that I would always use to view how states behave. For me, it's not a question of a state is peace-maintaining state or is a warmonger. It's all about national interest. You go to war because of your national interest, you maintain peace because of national interest. Because states are rational actors, and so is Pakistan. So if someone believes that Pakistan is not a peace-maintaining state, I would disagree with that, because first you need to then establish that what is a peace-maintaining state. So I'll stop here and let Dr. Nausheen continue.
Just add 2 points to what you already said, because states are rational actors. They take decisions out of a logic. Just we need to critically analyze that logic. So this is what I add to what Dr. Rizwan said. I seriously think that Pakistan needs to revisit its security threat. That is one point. Second question that you asked, whether there is will in Pakistan or India to go for cooperation. You see, if you see the history of India and Pakistan relations with remarkable consistency, India and Pakistan have followed the path of inconsistency. There is periods of cooperation and conflict. So far we have had 17 rounds of peace dialogue. They have not yielded fruit because they missed the necessary set of conditions, all the 3 sets of conditions that I just reflected on during my speech. So yes, we may start a new round of dialogue in 2 years. It's not surprising, it will not surprise me, because that is what history between India and Pakistan suggests, and I think we need to start at least to pacify the atmosphere. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Rizwan would like to add something.
I had no intentions to make it a back and forth, but I just want to add one point to what I've already said. You see, the current government in India, which is projected to continue for at least one more term, the ideology on which it is established, and if you recall the question that I asked from the audience to Dr. Farhan, was that if Narendra Modi has to be a peacemaker, he has actually have to let go whatever he has stood for. The whole political ideology of BJP and RSS is focused on only 3 points. And where does Pakistan stand in that? So suddenly, as I said, and I very intentionally used a certain name. And I said whether Modi can be the Menachem Begum of of South Asia. That was for the reason that if that is to happen, and then the question is, what if India changes its thing? For that to happen, BJP has to, and especially this ultra-hawk side of it, which is led by Narendra Modi, has to actually let go whatever they have stood for the last 80 odd years. So if you believe that can happen, you are more than welcome to have that view, but what little understanding I have of India and especially RSS, I don't think that is going to happen. So some other way needs to be found.
Okay, that is, I mean, like the pessimism. Realism? Okay, let's see how. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yuresh Faruqi. My question is directed towards Dr. Nausheen Wasi. There is a sense that in 21st century that economy is a new weapon of mass destruction. So is it helping the new Cold War to move towards new cold peace? Because we have seen the president of China in America recently. And can this cold peace help BRI and IMEC to coexist together at international level? And then in regional level, can it mend the issues between India and Pakistan? Because both are playing a major role in IMEC and CPEC, BRI respectively.
Will you please elaborate on your understanding of cold peace?
Cold peace is like that you are just not, like there's no kind of security dilemma. In Cold War there's an idea of security dilemma, it's an action-reaction theory. But in cold peace you are just trying to let go what the other person is saying.
No, it is not that, as at least I understand cold peace. Cold peace is a period whereby chances of war are high. This is how do we understand cold peace, and that is why I ask you to explain your understanding. You see, when Farhan during the morning talked about, he tried to generate analogy between what President Biden is saying and what is the trade volume between US and the China. I was thinking of another dichotomy in this process, which is that I see for the first time in the world interdependence is taking place. That is what we have aspired after the First World War, to create a more interdependent world where chances of peace are ever high and war do not take place. But you see what is happening at the moment, this interdependence is taking place because of the new sets of changes that have occurred over the period of time in the world, but we are forcefully denying that. I don't know what, intentionally or unintentionally, but we are not capitalizing on that feature. There needs to be a serious thinking on that, and we need to capitalize on the interdependence factor that is emerging by default. By so many policies that have been taken by the major powers of the world. This is where China is leading, and by the set of threats that are emerging, that are demanding more interdependent world than it used to be the case earlier. So actually this may need to think. I at least perceive this question from that way. Thank you.
Now, since our Chinese fellow, he is not joining us, and we've had ample time for discussion, which is good. Last two questions. Last two.
Yeah.
Over there. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Mehraj Alam and I'm IR student at Karachi University. My question was to the third speaker, but now I forward my question to Sir Rezwan Zeb. You want to say something? Okay. Sir, we have gone through the history. Even we have seen even few events in our life. After the World War II, US started to implement its hegemony on the third world countries and the newly independent countries to maximize its supervision. Remember that time the US was the only strong economical prosper country. But now after gaining the economical supervision, what you think about China? China is going to adopt the same policy what had America done in the whole history, or China is going to make peaceful bilateral and multilateral diplomacy with its close neighbors and regional countries, even having biggest issue.
Got your point. Got your point.
Okay.
But what it has to do with the theme of this session? Your question. Aja, you are on behalf of the third speaker.
Third speaker,
Oh, that's very imaginative of you.
who is missed now.
अच्छा वैसे तो because your result is still pending, so you better would not have asked that question. लेकिन अगर आपने पूछ लिया तो मैं आपकी हिम्मत को दाद देता. You see, currently we are living in a bipolar world with multipolar periphery. That's how I look at the current global politics. However, I see no similarity in what China is doing today with what the Americans did during the Cold War. So there is no point in always finding parallels. Cold War was Cold War, and what is happening today is a different thing. That is too simplistic an understanding of global politics. So it is better that we read and analyze the Chinese behavior more. I think I have once shared that example with you, that the copy or the replica of the Declaration of Independence that I got from White House was made in China. So you need to look at China like that and not as a replica of what the Americans did during the Cold War.
Thank you very much. Last. Yes. The lady over there. Yes. She has been trying to. Last. इनकी बारी है. इनकी बारी है.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Aliza Fatima. I'm a final year student from the Department of International Relations, University of Karachi. My question is directed towards Sir Rizwan. And I have read that somewhere that India has been maintaining cold peace in the region, especially with Pakistan. So you mentioned in your speech that it's more about what India needs to do. Whereas if we analyze, the dynamics of our relations are very asymmetric in nature in all aspects. So isn't it more about what Pakistan needs to do more? Because we need to step out for connectivity. India doesn't really feel the need to do that, because it has been getting involved in regional corporations like BIMSTEC in the east, right? So South Asia and SAARC has been a failure as far as it is concerned to the South Asian regional connectivity. So are we just going to sit around and wait for when India does what it needs to do? And are we just going to sit around and not step out and bring more conversations to the table?
Okay, got it.
I think one of the very first point that I flagged was that there is already ample literature that talks about what Pakistan needs to do. So not denying what Pakistan needs to do, I will focus on what is missing in the literature is what India needs to do. And that is what I did in my presentation. That's point number one. Point number two, as a student of history, and I'm talking about political history, no global power has emerged, an effective global power, before it was a regional hegemon, before it was recognized the leader of the region in which it was situated, before the regional countries accepted that state as their leader. Now you tell me how many of the South Asian countries actually accept India as the leader of South Asia. I rest my case.
Now,
Sir,
yeah,
I have a
just
question.
last, gentleman was pressing on. वो उनको पूछना था ना ये जो है जरा be brief, please be brief. इनको माइक दें.
Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Suhail. I'm a student of Department of IR doing MPhil from Karachi University. And my question is from Dr. Rizwan. Sir, it is said sometime by scholars and academia that the rise of Germany back in 1914 and the rise of the India in the South Asia is just like making the situation parallel. What is your comment on this? And the second question is, in South Asia, people are looking for to connect with each other, but systems are not ready. Like Pakistan, India, the people-to-people contact is quite viable, and people are ready for this, but system and governments are not moving to proceed this process. What is your take?
Okay, first of all, I don't know who are the people who say that the rise of Germany in 1940 and the rise of India, if at all, has any parallel. So please enlighten me on that. I would love to read. I do have some spare time, so I'll read that. Having said that, you see, the initiator of connectivity are always governments. Only people who can connect without government's approval are the smugglers and the criminals. Thank you very much.
Nay, please. It's over now. Over. No, you can ask after the break, after this session. So there is no problem.
I would like to thank our esteemed speakers and the chair for sharing their insight of their tremendous works and knowledge with us. I would now request Dr. Munis Ahmed to present shield to our worthy guest, Dr. Rizwan Zaib. Oh, you would like to come up here? Sir, I apologize. I would request you to please carry on.
Well, I can carry on. I can hang on. I can carry on. I can understand your predicament that somehow you were not able to, because session chair also has his or her prerogative. And it reminds me of Professor Lok Raj Baral. Lok Raj Baral from Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu. So there was a conference in Colombo way back in 1999 on South Asia, on conflicts in South, something like that. And he was chairing a session, which was a big session. That was July 1999. And then when all the speakers were done and things like that, so he said that I also have something. I also want to say something. Now, so you bear with this situation, and I don't want to unnecessarily, detain you as far as this session is concerned or this conference is concerned. Couple of things which I would like to. The first is that IR students must read, if you have not read, the book by Dr. Henry Kissinger, the former American National Security Advisor and Secretary of State, on leadership, 6 studies in world strategy. And number 1 was Kurt Adenauer, the Chancellor of West Germany, 1949 to 1963. He, along with Charles de Gaulle, and Charles de Gaulle is also another case which Kissinger has discussed in his book. These two leaders had a vision for united Europe. And that vision basically led in 1963 Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation between Franco-German Treaty of Peace and Cooperation. The problem basically in South Asia is three-pronged. The first is that when Nausheen was giving her presentation and Rizwan was also, the problem is that as far as SAARC is concerned, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, established way back in December 1985. It did a lot of work. There's no doubt about it. Since 1981, when there was, April 81, when there was the first foreign secretaries meeting of South Asian countries. Then in 1983, when there was the first foreign ministers meeting of South Asian countries. And then it became SARC, South Asian Regional Cooperation, and transformed in December 1985 as South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. A lot of, summits were held of SAARC. The problem basically is that SAARC has been surplus as far as theoretical connectivity is concerned. Theoretical. You name it, that there should be a visa-free regime. There should be economic connectivity. SAARC was the first regional organization to sign a charter against terrorism, charter on preventing narcotics, on tourism, on civil aviation, many things. So it was surplus in theoretical connectivity, but since it lacked political will and determination, that it was not able to transform that connectivity, theoretical connectivity, into a practice. So that's something which is very unfortunate, that since 2016 there has been no SAARC summit. Whosoever is responsible, and we know very well that who derailed the process of SAARC. It was the Indian Prime Minister who instigated Afghanistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka to not to participate in the Islamabad summit, which was scheduled to be held in November 2016 in Islamabad. So that was almost the end of SAARC. The second thing is that when we talk about the impediments to connectivity, one point which really needs to be analyzed is that there is no problem as far as digital connectivity is concerned. You are connected. We are all connected through Facebook, through WhatsApp, through Twitter and other online or whatever digital platforms. I have since last almost a year, there's a Facebook page which is on India, Pakistan, Bangladesh communities. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. There are 1,000 members. And we share the historical, the cultural and economic and people-to-people interaction and whatever. There was a time between India and Pakistan. It's very unfortunate. I think the new generation must take cognizance of when we talk about connectivity. That on August 14 and 15, something happened in the Indian subcontinent. Two states emerged. That those who were living in Lahore and those who were living in Amritsar, they used to commute on bicycles. There was no problem. There was no border, Border was not to be seen as such. That was the level of connectivity for years and years, till the time there was the 1965 war. 1965 war closed that chapter and it imposed restrictions and things like that. So connectivity we tried to again after 65 war when there was the Tashkent declaration issued January 1966 and India-Pakistan agreed to normalize their relations. The best era in connectivity, Indo-Pakistan connectivity, since we have discussed this thing, whether we like it or not, the person who was at the helm of affairs, General Ziaul Haq, who was the president of Pakistan, somehow during his rule from 1977 all the way to 88, the connectivity between India and Pakistan was so obvious. There used to be Indian consulate in Karachi. There used to be the Pakistan consulate in Mumbai. And I remember that those wishing to visit India used to go to the Indian consulate Karachi or to the Indian embassy in Islamabad or to the Pakistan High Commission, Indian High Commission in Islamabad or to the Pakistan High Commission in Delhi or the consulate in Mumbai. There was no issue. And thousands and thousands of people used to travel with divided families and things like that. So what has happened? To the extent that we are unable to, as far as physical connectivity is concerned. Digital connectivity is there, but physical connectivity is not to be seen. Now, there are certainly forces who are against viable connectivity between the people of India and Pakistan. In 1995 in Lahore, Indo-Pakistan People's Forum for Peace and Democracy was launched. Indo-Pakistan People's Forum for Peace and Democracy, which was led by Dr. Mubashir Hassan and Dr. and Mr. I.A. Rahman. Now, it was basically a, you can say, a non-official, purely track 3. We have not discussed such tracks. Track 1, track 2, track 3. Track 1, that is between the officials of the two countries, the connectivity between the two. Track 2 is non-officials having the support and the blessings of officials. And track 3 is purely people to people. So Indo-Pakistan People's Forum for Peace and Democracy, every year they used to have activities. They used to have various programs. 100 people from India, 100 people from Pakistan used to visit and managing their own resources. There was a time 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, that there were at least 42 track 2 dialogues. 42. And the Regional Center for Strategic Studies, RCSS, based in Colombo, used to be the hub of connectivity. Summer school, winter school, all such things have disappeared. So we have gone back. And I was referring to Charles de Gaulle and I was referring to Konrad-Adenauer that how the mending of fences between France and Germany, that basically paved the way for European Union. Now, the thing is basically that what I have understood after all these years of experiences, because he asked me about K. Subramaniam. K. Subramaniam, an icon, Indian nuclear strategist. I listened to him. I met him for the first time in 1985 when there was under 30 UNESCO Conference on Peace, Development, Disarmament, International Security at the India International Center in New Delhi. So he came as a keynote speaker. Then I met him again in 1989 in IDSA, Indian Defense Strategic Analysis. Then I met him last time, that was in Salzburg, way back in 1994, June. So he was considered to be a hawk. His son, Jai Shankar Subramaniam, he's the man who runs the foreign policy. Whatever we can lament, we can criticize, we can, that India is doing this, India is doing that. But the fact is that their leadership is such. Their leadership has a vision. It is a vision for Pakistan. True. It is a vision for Pakistan that Pakistan, unless Pakistan changes its policy on Kashmir, its policy on whatever cross-border terrorism, it will not let Pakistan, connect with other countries of South Asia, which Narendra Modi proved after 2016. So it's there. Vision against Pakistan is there. And when he addressed from Red Fort, Delhi, we should just understand about, we should understand our neighbor. They should understand us. And it's not only India, Pakistan, it's also Bangladesh. It's also Nepal and Sri Lanka and Afghanistan and Bhutan and Maldives. The other vision of India. So when Narendra Modi delivered a speech from Red Fort, Delhi on August 15, 2023, what he said? He said that our, Hindi mein kaha tha usne, he said that our vision is that India should be number one power, economic power, global power, by the year 2047. And there are two people in this hall who were a witness to a session when there was a 2-day workshop in December 2001 on paradigms of conflict resolution in South Asia. And there was a session which was arranged in the end before concluding. You remember that? Vision of South Asia in 2047, which was published in a book published by the University Press Limited, Dhaka, way back in 2003. And Naeem and Nausheen also participated because we knew that they'll be able to experience, they'll be able to witness 2047. So Narendra Modi said that India will be number one. India's economy is number 5th. And I agree with what Rizwan said, that unless India there's a mending of fences with Pakistan, normalizes its relations with Pakistan, there'll always be a problem. India will not be able. So it has to understand the dynamics of the region, but they are so clear about their vision. Even India, which is an alliance conglomeration of various political parties, including Congress and Aam Aadmi Party and this Mamata Banerjee's Trinamool Congress and Southern regions parties, they all agree there's a consensus, there's a strategic consensus that India should be number one. And where are we? I mean, I don't want to compare, but the fact is that we were better off. We were better off 5 decades ago. There was economic, Pakistan was ranked, the fastest growing economy. How can you forget Dr. Mehboob ul Haq? That South Korea and Singapore and many other countries used to consult Pakistan. How you have achieved this economic miracle? There used to be 5-year plans till 70s, not anymore. So basically, connectivity is okay, it's fine. But this is the worst period, worst time as far as India-Pakistan is concerned. And they'll be accountable for the damage which they have done as far as the present generation and the future generations of South Asia concerned. So I don't want to continue because there's a saying that people, they don't leave their mic. If they have a mic, they don't want to. And they don't leave their chair, meaning their seat of power. They don't want to. But that is something which should not happen. So to conclude, I would say that viable, plausible connectivity is in the interest of South Asia. And Pakistan is the least connected country in South Asia. In terms of flights, we don't have flights for India. We don't, air flights meaning, we don't have for Nepal, for Bangladesh. Only there is Sri Lankan airline. Sri Lankan airline. It was Air Lanka before Air Lanka was destroyed by the Tamil Tigers in 2000 and one something like that. Only Sri Lankan airline from, that's the only South Asian from South Asia which has I think 4 times flight from Karachi and Lahore to Colombo. PIA doesn't fly to Colombo. PIA doesn't fly to Malé. It used to. Connectivity. So what sort of connectivity we are talking about? That India is Pakistan's only eastern neighbor. Pakistan is India's only western neighbor. We are not connected. We are not connected. Afghanistan, that's another sad story. Tomorrow there is a session on Afghanistan. I wish good luck as far as that session is concerned. That's another problem. In terms of connectivity, Iran, that's another problem. So there has to be willingness, there has to be readiness, there has to be practical approach, planning, determination, will, things like that. And I said in the morning when I asked a question, we don't want recycling of ideas. Enough is enough. What we want is whether you have Narendra Modi for another 5 years as the Prime Minister. What will happen here? This Hasina Wajid, she is not Wajid anymore, Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. She is now aspiring for 4th term. So we have to understand the nexus between Modi and Sheikh Hasina and how these two, this Bangladeshi and Indian leadership, they have tried to, dominate their own narrative in South Asia. So all the two presentations were quite useful, interesting, which was reflected in the discourse, in the question answer session. And certainly one needs to be hopeful, one needs to be optimistic, one needs to be perceptive, one needs to look beyond, not tunnel vision, and the elites of India and Pakistan, and also the people of India and Pakistan, and Afghanistan, and Nepal, and Sri Lanka, and Bhutan, and Maldives, and Bangladesh, they should understand that time is flying. And before 2047, they should make sure that this region is stable, stability. And stability will not come through hard power. Stability will not come in terms of dictating things or threats or things like that. Stability only comes when there is a consensus and when there is a political will and determination on the part of those who are at the helm of affairs. And for God's sake, leave aside the egocentric approach, because the egocentric approach has damaged as far as South Asia is concerned. So I don't want you to remain standing, I'm so sorry about it. But the fact is that such type of an opportunity needs to be well utilized so that where do we go from here? Thank you very much.
would like to thank our esteemed speakers and our chair, Dr. Munis Ahmed, for sharing an insight of their works and knowledge with us. I would now request Professor Dr. Munis Ahmed to present shield to our worthy speaker as a gift of gratitude. Dr. Rizwan Zeb, kindly receive the shield of gratitude from Dr. Professor Munis Ahmed. I would now request Dr. Professor Munis Ahmed to please present the shield to Dr. Nosheen Wasi. I would now request Dr. Ellinor to please present a token of gratitude to Professor Dr. Munis Ahmed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. Tea and refreshments are served. We'll see you all tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you.